Welcome to the fourth video in our series on implicit bias and artificial intelligence. We have seen that implicit bias formation in artificial intelligence can have serious detrimental effects on the trustworthiness of the epistemic quality of its output. Said in simple terms, AI is not always right, and AI can be prejudiced, just like humans. In the last video, we have delved into the notion of implicit bias, as it has been generally understood in psychology and neuroscience. In this video, we will look at 3 standard methods to mitigate biases in psychology. Oh, sorry, I almost forgot. You have the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to become a member of our fast-growing community here on YouTube. Be sure you won't miss out. Now back to the video.
As we now have a clearer understanding of the concept of bias, let's investigate the methods that have been developed to mitigate bias formation. The first method for the recognition and subsequent revision of an implicitly held bias is the implicit association test. This test is designed to challenge commonly held behavioral paradigms of an agent and assess implicit attitudes in various research contexts. The test, mostly devised by social psychologists, gauges the strength of the agent's automatic associations between a mental representation and an object in the agent's memory. A second common method for identifying and rectifying implicit bias involves targeted education and training. This approach aligns with the rationality of bias model position we discussed earlier, which presumes that all cognitive biases, whether implicit or explicit, can be revised when confronted with counter-evidence. A third method for implicit bias intervention involves promoting mindfulness and perspective-taking. This method necessitates intentional, conscious self-reflection and introspection. However, this method imposes a substantial epistemological responsibility on the subject, which, by definition, the agent cannot fully uphold due to the radical subjective nature of the subject's first-person perspective. This issue points directly to one of the main concepts of the system of the fourth way. Mechanical man cannot do or remember himself. Taking a third-person perspective is virtually impossible and practically very challenging, as man as he is fully identified with himself and unable to separate his actions from his mental disposition. This problem is widely recognized in almost every esoteric school of thought, even dating back to antiquity. To remember oneself, to see oneself as one appears to another, is impossible without a group, school, or conscious teacher. One way to circumvent the issue of this subjective epistemological limitation is through the method of group sharing, which establishes a triad consisting of a facilitator, the subject, and the group. In this dynamic, subjects are invited to report on their explicit motivation for their behavior to the group under the observant eye of the facilitator. In this context, the group serves as a focus group for the agent that is reporting. Any contradictions between explicitly reported motivations and reported or overt behavior may allow a divergence to become authentically discernible. Consequently, the subject's report and the discernibility of the divergence of the report with a reported belief in turn provide a third-person perspective for each participant in the group. In conclusion, we've observed that psychological biases are pervasive and nearly impossible to prevent entirely. Concurrently, the ramifications of bias formation, occasionally leading to social inequalities and discrimination, are becoming increasingly evident. In today's society, this heightened sensitivity is prominently seen in woke culture, which is ardently striving to eradicate biases and prejudices. The debate regarding the effectiveness of this approach remains open, as it's plausible to consider prejudices and biases as an inherent anthropological dimension. In many cases, becoming aware of these biases might be the most we can achieve. However, this doesn't negate the fact that everyone should be inspired to be held accountable for personally held implicit biases. In our collective dialogue lies the key to a world with greater understanding and tolerance, stemming from the acceptance that every individual is human, with all its accompanying traits, including implicit biases.
In our next video in this series, we will investigate implicit bias formation in artificial intelligence and explore what can be learned from the methods employed to mitigate implicit bias formation in natural intelligence. Be sure not to miss that episode by subscribing to our channel. Thanks for watching!